Our next speaker, please put your hands together. John, are you ready? You look very relaxed. Please put your hands together, ladies and gentlemen, for the Shadow Chancellor. It's John McDonnell.
Thanks. Thanks. I look like every Irish shagging dad. That's the first I've heard that one. Can I thank the CWU for this event, but also can I also thank them because they were one of the first unions that came out to nominate and support Jeremy Corbyn when we needed it last year. There's nearly 3,000 people here and there's nearly 50,000 watching online. It shows you what organisation can do. But can I just say to those people who may not be a member of CW or a member of a union, join a union. We need you as part of our movement now. This last 12 months has been momentous, to be frank. 12 months ago, we'd lost the general election, and most of us were fairly despondent on that Friday after the Thursday. And then Ed Miliband resigned. I didn't want Ed to go, to be honest. I wanted him to stick around so we could sort things out. But he resigned, and then we came under pressure to run a left candidate in the leadership election. And Jeremy and I, some of you will know this story, we convened meetings of the left platform or the left groups in the Labour Party to explain to them we thought this was a disastrous idea. Do not take racing tips from me in future. We got groups together and said we'd never get on the ballot paper. But the pressure was such that we decided, okay, we'd run a candidate. And I convened a meeting of the Socialist Campaign Group, and there was myself, Jeremy, Michael Meacher, God rest his soul, Diane Abbott, and others. We sat around to say, who's going to be the candidate? And I said, well, I've done it twice, and I was so popular I couldn't get on the ballot paper. Diane Abbott said she'd run once, didn't want to do it again, and so literally sitting at the end of the table was Jeremy. And we said, it's your turn. And he said, go on then. That's the sort of leader I want, someone you have to force into standing. Because I'm sick to death of careerists who just look after themselves and remain the principle. We struggled then to get him on the ballot paper. We needed 35 nominations. We did deals with everyone. I became his campaign chair of the campaign committee, and I admit it, I did all sorts of different deals with different people. I offered to sleep with anyone just to get him on the ballot paper. Interestingly enough, no one took me up. Anyway, we got him there with 35 nominations in the last 10 seconds before close of nominations. He'd gone for a cup of tea, and we had to go and tell him he was the candidate. We then organised all around the country, meetings after meetings. And in the left tradition, I said, look, book a hall, no more than 100 people, chairs that you can take away so that if 20 turn up, it looks crowded. And we did our first meeting, and Jeremy said, come with me, we'll tour around the country together. I said, look, it looked like Last of Summer Wine on tour if we get out there. And so we had our first meeting, booked it for 100, expecting 30 or 40, 500 people turned up. We booked the next hall for 500, 1,000 turned up. And it was like that, 100 meetings around the country. And there's a brilliant film of the Bidborough Centre one in Camden where the hall with a couple of thousand was full inside, and Jeremy spoke from the fire engine outside to the street that was full. And there's a brilliant film of two young people breaking into the hall, not breaking out. And it demonstrated the sort of enthusiasm that campaign generated. Why? Because Jeremy gave people hope. Hope that they'd lost at that election, hope that they needed again. And people turned up, and those meetings would talk about the issues people faced. People turned up and said, look, we've got a housing crisis in our community. I tell you, in my constituency tonight, there'll be 200 people in bed and breakfast. People have to be in the area 10 years now under the Tories before they get on the register. I got people sleeping in sheds and garages, beds in sheds, along the canal, in the parks, homeless. The homelessness crisis we've not seen for generations. And people turned up with their own stories like that, and we said, there's a solution here. when we get back into government, we're going to build council homes again. In their hundreds and thousands, we'll build it to tackle this housing crisis. And we had, today, Jeremy and I joined the junior doctors on their march from St Thomas's to Richmond House, the Department of Health. And we had health workers turn up at those meetings telling us what sort of pressure they're under. And we said it's quite clear what's needed now. When we go back into government, we're going to end the privatisation of the NHS. No more private contracts. Bring it back in. And we had people turning up who were explaining the pressure of work that they were under, the wage freezes that they'd endured for the last 8 years. And we said we understand why that's happened, because since the 1980s we've been denied trade union rights. So when we get back, we'll bring back a trade union bill that restores trade union rights in this country. Now, they're the policies we advocated. We advocated during that election campaign for 3 months, and Jeremy toured around the country, 100 meetings, packed out meetings, hustings with the other candidates. And to be frank, the relationship with the other candidates was friendly, it was comrade, it was a democratic debate. When they said about, I had canvass teams all around the country, telephone canvassing, they kept on coming back saying, we're getting 60% of the polls. And I couldn't believe we retrained them again. Then we came to that final day. I just didn't believe them, 60%. We got to that final day, and Jeremy on that Saturday got 59.5% of the vote. And he got it in every category, members, affiliates, and registered supporters. And I tell you what made me proudest of all. The first act of a new Labour leader was to thank the volunteers, do his speech, but the first act was to go into Parliament Square to speak to the demonstration on the theme of welcoming refugees into this country. Last night, the amendment came forward, as you know, for the immigration bill. It was put forward in the House of Lords by Alf Dubs, Lord Dubs as he is now. What Alf Dubs was, he was one of those Jewish children as part of the Kinder group that came across from Germany who escaped from the Nazis to survive, just to survive. And he put forward an amendment to the immigration bill just to say that we would take 3,000 children. For the Tories to defeat that was one of the most despicable acts I've ever seen in parliamentary history. They shame this country. They shame us. Now, since last September and Jeremy's election, he did exactly what he said. He put together a broad-ranging shadow cabinet, a broad church, left, right and centre, and he's got the Parliamentary Labour Party working together. Don't believe, there's young people here, I don't want to disillusion you, but you can't always believe what you read in the Daily Mail. The Parliamentary Labour Party is united. There's a small number of people who feel dispossessed and go to the media, but we're bringing them on board as best we can. And we're united and we're working to defeat these Tories at every opportunity we possibly can. Tomorrow, the trade union bill will come before us. We're going to do everything we can to amend it and defeat it and destroy the attempt to destroy the trade union movement in this country, because this trade union bill is an existential threat to trade unions in this country. But we tell them very much, if they get through this bill, if they get through it, yes, we'll try and ameliorate it, but if they get through it, within the first week of a Labour government, we will scrap it. We will get rid of it. Because it is an attack on basic democratic rights. We're defeating the Tories from pushing them back time and time again. We won on tax credits. We pushed them back on the attack on disabled people. We're pushing them back on the attack on local government and elsewhere. So we're doing our best in terms of Parliament. In the House of Commons, it's tough. They've got a majority of 12, but the electorate elected on less than 25%, so hardly a mandate. But in the House of Lords, an organisation I've been trying to abolish for the last 30 years, we're defeating them. We will eventually abolish it, but let's use them while we can. So between now and then, between now and 2020, what we want to do is defeat them in every way possible in Parliament. But also what we need to do is recognise that you destabilise a government as well by the actions within our community. So it is about winning the arguments. It's about winning the arguments about the economy, about the policies that we want to pursue. It's about supporting those people that are in struggle as well. And I tell you, disabled people have been targeted by this government so much over the last 6 years. I was proud of them when they tried to storm Parliament, to be honest. Disabled people against the cuts stood up against them about what they were doing to slash their benefits. And that's the same right the way across the piece. So I just give you this commitment from Jeremy and myself. Whether it's in Parliament or on the picket line or on the streets, we'll be with you. We'll be with you all through this struggle to defeat this government and, yes, end its life as soon as we possibly can. And I just say what it needs. I say it time and time again. 3 things. One is courage. Sometimes we have to stand up and be counted, and sometimes you're swimming against the stream, and I know that takes courage. The courage the junior doctors are displaying at the moment. The courage the teachers will be displaying when they campaign against the forced academisation of their schools as well. It also takes determination. The determination that we will persevere and we will win. But above all else, it takes the other thing. Some of you will have heard me say this before. It's a secret we discovered a century and a half ago in the workshops, the Industrial Revolution, in the fields. We put it on our banners. It's the secret that unity is strength. Injury to one is an injury to all. Workers united will never be defeated. It's the secret of solidarity. So we need those 3 things: courage, determination, but above all else, to win, solidarity. Solidarity, brothers and sisters.
Ladies and gentlemen, the future Chancellor of Great Britain, John McDonnell.